Breaking news is unfolding right now as the conflict between Iran and Israel involving the United States escalates rapidly across the Middle East, drawing global attention and raising serious questions about what could happen next. What began as a coordinated military campaign has now turned into one of the most volatile confrontations in years, with strikes, missile barrages, and regional shockwaves felt in multiple countries. On February 28, 2026, joint forces from Israel and the United States launched a major air campaign against strategic targets in Iran, codenamed Operation Epic Fury by American officials and known locally as Operation Lion's Roar. These strikes included coordinated bombardments of military infrastructure, missile launch sites, command posts, and high-value leadership targets deep inside Iranian territory. The intensity of the initial assault marked a dramatic escalation in regional tensions that had been building for years due to disputes over nuclear programs, long-standing geopolitical rivalries, and mutual perceptions of threat. Almost immediately, Iranian state media confirmed that the capital, Tehran, had been hit by airstrikes, sending plumes of smoke into the sky and forcing civilians to seek shelter as explosions rocked the city. The attack was widely reported by international outlets, and it also triggered immediate retaliation from Tehran. The fallout was swift. Already by the third day of the conflict, air raid sirens could be heard in Tel Aviv, and civilian areas across Israel were threatened by Iranian ballistic missiles and drone strikes. The Iranian response was not limited to just a few launches. Instead, dozens of missile salvos and unmanned aerial vehicles targeted Israeli territory, forcing the country to rely heavily on its missile defense systems. What makes this confrontation different from previous flare-ups between Iran and Israel is the sheer scale of retaliation and the number of countries now caught in the crossfire. In addition to Israel and Iran, Iranian proxy forces and regional actors have started engaging in cross-border strikes. For example, paramilitary groups like Hezbollah, based in Lebanon, have launched missiles and drones into northern Israel, while Israeli forces have responded with bombardments of strategic positions inside Lebanon, particularly near Beirut. In recent days, Iranian forces have not only fired ballistic missiles toward Israel, but also targeted United States bases and military assets in the Gulf region. Reports indicate that multiple strikes were directed at installations in Gulf states hosting U.S. forces, including areas near bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar, prompting concerns about an even broader escalation that could involve additional allied forces or military responses. This latest wave of violence has pushed the conflict into its seventh day, with some reports suggesting that more than 1,400 lives have been lost across multiple fronts, including Iran, Israel, and Lebanon, and that the death toll continues to rise as hostilities intensify. At the center of this conflict is the death of Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, who was reportedly killed during one of the initial strikes. While official announcements regarding his death vary, multiple international outlets and defense analysts note that his removal from the battlefield has had a profound psychological and strategic impact on Tehran's leadership. Iranian authorities have rejected calls for a ceasefire and have publicly declared their readiness to confront any further military pressure, including potential ground invasions. Iranian officials have also warned that continued attacks will be met with severe retaliation, signaling that Tehran's strategy is shifting toward a full defensive posture rather than a simple restraint policy. Meanwhile, political leaders in Washington, D.C. have suggested that U.S. military operations could persist for weeks, with discussions ongoing about whether additional U.S. ground forces might be deployed. President Donald Trump has been quoted as saying that the goal is to degrade Iran's ability to project military power, but he has also hinted at a possible extended commitment if the situation demands it. The ramifications extend far beyond the battlefield. Trade routes, particularly the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow but vital waterway for global oil shipments, have been disrupted. Iran has asserted control over parts of this choke point, leading to disruptions in international shipping and causing global oil prices to spike. The economic consequences of such a shutdown could be far-reaching, affecting markets worldwide and potentially triggering inflationary pressures in major economies that depend on oil imports. In addition to military and economic impacts, the humanitarian toll continues to mount. Thousands of civilians have been displaced, entire neighborhoods have been damaged or destroyed, and basic services in conflict zones are increasingly strained. International organizations have warned that ongoing hostilities could create new waves of refugees and deepen existing humanitarian crises throughout the region. Amid these developments, neighboring countries are also reacting. Governments in the United Arab Emirates have attempted to stabilize air travel by opening safe air corridors for limited commercial flights as regional airspace disruptions threaten tourism and business travel. These efforts reflect the broader challenge for governments trying to balance civilian safety with economic continuity. European leaders, including Germany's chancellor, have urged caution and diplomatic engagement to prevent a wider regional war. They warn that a prolonged conflict could destabilize not just the Middle East, but also Europe itself by triggering refugee flows, economic uncertainty, and amplified geopolitical tensions that could drag in NATO allies. On social media platforms and news networks around the world, discussions about the future of the Israel-Iran war have exploded. Some observers warn that the current trajectory could draw in additional powers such as Russia or China, either directly or through political alliances, which would escalate the conflict into an even more widespread confrontation. Others argue that diplomatic solutions, pressure from international organizations, or negotiated ceasefires could emerge as mechanisms to de-escalate tensions before they spiral further out of control. Yet others emphasize that modern warfare today unfolds on multiple fronts, not only through aerial bombardments and missile strikes, but also through cyber operations, satellite reconnaissance, and economic sanctions. Each of these elements plays a role in how conflicts escalate, shift, and potentially resolve themselves over time. Another significant consequence of the conflict is its impact on global markets. Investors worldwide are watching oil, gold, and currency markets closely as geopolitical risk premiums increase. Markets sensitive to disruptions in supply chains and energy shipments have shown volatility as traders price in the possibility of deeper regional instability. Amid this backdrop, some analysts caution that there are no easy answers. Even if the major military operations slow down or transition to targeted strikes, the underlying tensions, rooted in historical grievances, strategic rivalries, and competing national interests, are likely to persist unless comprehensive diplomatic efforts are pursued. In the coming days and weeks, world leaders may be pushed to the brink of making difficult decisions, whether to continue supporting military campaigns, whether to seek negotiated peace, or whether to face the consequences of a broader regional war. These decisions will not only shape the future of the Middle East, but may also influence global geopolitics for years to come. One thing is clear: the conflict between Iran, Israel, and their respective allies is no longer a local or isolated confrontation. It has already drawn in global powers, impacted world markets, and become a central topic of international relations discussions. The world watches closely as the war enters new phases, each bringing fresh challenges and uncertainties. Millions of people are affected, and many more are trying to understand what might happen next. For those following this conflict, the story remains unresolved. Far from it. This is an evolving crisis that could redefine alliances, reshape borders, and leave a lasting mark on the history of the 21st century. And for viewers around the world, staying informed with accurate, verified information has never been more important.